Craig Smoak.
4 o'clock hour, John Hoover, SI, covers Oklahoma. We've had John on before, also worked at Tulsa, in Tulsa, covers Oklahoma. Sikkim 365 radio with Oklahoma Baylor coming up 11 o'clock Saturday morning. So, John, what the hell? Gabe Eichert was on with us, and I saw you retweeted something that I retweeted about Lincoln Riley pulling off the magic trick of being at practice and also flying to Baton Rouge. What's going on with that? What's the latest smoke, or what is it what's true? We have him? He's up? We lost him?
Yeah, no.
Oh,
hey guys. Sorry about that. My mistake. I had my mute button on. Oh. Still trying to figure out this digital age of how to turn your mute button off.
You're not the only one that listens to us that mutes us, by the way, John. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. Now, so what's the latest? I mean, the latest is that he's at practice. ESPN shooting some backstory kind of video type stuff, and he was there for that. No, there's nothing to anything in terms of the weight of the program. There's nothing to, like, he doesn't have coronavirus. He's not leaving for Baton Rouge. He had something come up, had to skip his press conference. And frankly, the program is extremely non-forthcoming when it comes to this kind of thing. So it could be anything. It literally could be anything. And what I'm hoping, guys, is that, we were kind of bummed that the head coach wasn't able to take questions yesterday at his press conference to talk about his program. But what I'm really hoping is that it's nothing serious with, like, his family or something like that, because frankly, as I was using my memory, I just finished the SI Sooners podcast. I was trying to go back in my memory banks, and I think Bob Stoops missed a grand total of one press conference that I know of that I covered in his many years at Oklahoma, and that was because one of his children was having surgery at the time and was small and young, and there was some fear around the family, and so that he needed to be gone. And I'm like, wow, I really hope that's not the case with Lincoln Riley. But and again, I'm not throwing rumors out there. I'm just saying, if he's missing something, it's part of his contract that he has to be at those press conferences. That's the big part of his contract, right? That's the quote unquote personal services that the coach gets a bunch of money for from private funds. So if he's missing one, it must be something serious. I just hope it's not too serious.
Yeah. Well, Matt Rule missed one time because his daughter fell off a swing set and broke her arm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it happens, John.
But he was never involved in any, like, lingering thoughts.
Oh, no. He's never rumored to be going anywhere.
Yeah. So, John, the Sooners had come off the week off, and they've had their ups and downs. They're, for some reason, ranked 8th, even though they're undefeated. I know they haven't been Oklahoma impressive this year. Do you have, now that Caleb Williams is the quarterback, do you have kind of a better bead on who they really are now?
Yeah, that's interesting that you would ask it that way. We just talked about that we look at Oklahoma in the broader sense, and we think this is who Oklahoma is. But the fact that they just had a quarterback change makes us all dummies. We don't know. We really don't know what. Listen, Caleb Williams is a spectacular talent, a next-level, generational type talent. He's also a true freshman who's never seen a defense like he's going to see on Saturday, or next Saturday against Iowa State, or the Saturday after that against Oklahoma State, or in the Big 12 champ, right? He's a true freshman who didn't play high school football as a senior because of the pandemic. So he is the ultimate wild card in this thing. He literally might be, I'm not exaggerating here, I'm not prone to, being a prisoner of the moment or any of that. I don't think I am, but he literally might be the best player in college football in the country, and he's also a true freshman. So we don't know if he's going to throw for 5 touchdowns or throw 5 interceptions, guys. We really don't. So do we know what the Oklahoma identity is right now?
Defensively, I know they've been able to at times get a lot of pressure, especially up front. I mean, they got a pretty stout defensive line, some great edge rushers, but they have at times faltered, and certainly not nearly to the levels of 2-3 years ago. But what's just kind of been the consensus on Alex Grinch's defense this year? What are the areas of concern, and what do you look at with Baylor in particular, the way they run that wide zone, running the football, and being able to chunk it around? What kind of a challenge does that present for the Sooners defense?
Yeah, I asked Alex Grinch that question. Just the fact that Baylor hasn't really changed identities, even though they've changed coach changed coaching staffs, they still run with power and they still hit you deep with big plays in the passing game. And he said, no, it's an extremely accurate, I guess, putting together summation of what Baylor does offensively. So he's got some concern about, the running game. He's got some concern about the passing game. When you talk about the numbers that Gary Bohannon has put up this season, and throwing to guys like Tyquan Thornton, he leads the Big 12 in receiving yards, and he averages 17 yards a catch, something like that. R.J. Sneed is a guy. These are guys who have proven quantities in the Big 12 as big play receivers, and then the running game featuring Abram Smith, already over 1,000 yards, leads the Big 12 in 7.5 yards a carry. Man, scored 11 touchdowns. Are you kidding me with this? Baylor has done an unbelievable job. And then throw Treston Ebner in there, the speedster, right? He's averaging 6 yards a carry. Alex Grinch is very, very, very focused and concerned about the way that Baylor attacks defenses vertically and right up the middle. With that running game, it almost looks like a little bit like the latter days of Art Briles, where you walk out there and you think, well, this is Baylor and this is the spread. No, man, they're going to run it right down your throat, and they're going to get 6, 7, 8 yards of carry doing it. So it's interesting to me, and Alex Grinch said it as well, that Baylor has had coaching changes and philosophical changes, and yet they look very much the same that they always have.
Yeah, they do. They when the Briles thing happened, they'll never win again. And then here comes Rule. And then when he left, they'll never win again. And here has Aranda now with them at 7-2. John, was there any luster taken off this game, in your opinion, from OU's side? I know what is in front of them, and we now know Baylor is absolutely no more mulligans left for them. They have to beat Oklahoma. Did any luster come off this game with Baylor's loss at TCU?
Well, not according to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's just a loss. It's no big deal. We'll drop them one spot if we can move them down. Just bump them down a little bit. No, I think on the whole, yes. I think this was a game that was shaping up just like the luster that came off of the Iowa State matchup when they go into Morgantown and just lay a complete egg. From Oklahoma, man, you need Baylor and you need Iowa State, and they better hope Oklahoma State doesn't follow suit and lose to somebody that they're not supposed to lose to, because Oklahoma, from their perspective, they want to get to the playoff and they need a big shiny resume. And the only thing that they can hang their hat on, Gary Barta, the selection committee chairman, told us last night, they don't have any signature wins. He's 100% right. Their best win is Kansas State, who beat Kansas last week to go to 6-3. So Oklahoma needs Baylor, needs Iowa State, and needs Oklahoma State to win as many games as possible.
Well, I mean, Oklahoma will have tons of signature wins in a couple of years when they go to the SEC, because that's what the SEC team is a signature win, no matter who it is, unless it's maybe Vanderbilt. They're not a signature win. But John, do you sense from the fan base that they're a little stressed about this Oklahoma team and being an undefeated team that might get left out of the playoff?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. They've had 5 wins against teams with losing records that they've had all 5 of them. They've had to hang on at the end of the game. I mean, people were laughing or poking fun at or complaining about Cincinnati last week here in my hometown, taking on the Golden Hurricane and having to hang on at the end, having to have 2 goal line stands in the final minute to hold on and stay undefeated against a lousy team like Tulsa. Well, OU does that every week, and it doesn't matter who they're playing. It's like the 2 games the 2 most recent big wins, 52-31 against TCU, and I think 52-21 against Texas Tech. That's about as complete as Oklahoma has played all year. And we don't count Western Carolina. That was not just an FCS team. That was a bad FCS team. So we throw that one out. But the other 5 games, guys, have been down to the wire against Nebraska, against West Virginia, against Tulane, who is now 1-7 on the season. Oklahoma's been living dangerously, and obviously they figured a few things out by putting Caleb Williams in there, and they've gotten some guys healthy in the 2 of the last 3 weeks. They've gotten some players, some starters back on defense, and I think you're starting to see some of the byproduct of that. Caleb Williams and the health on defense coming together. Maybe Oklahoma can survive this deadly November run that they've got coming up.
John, Baylor defensively is a pretty good team. I mean, last week's not the game you want to watch to really back that up, but they have been susceptible to big plays in the passing game, whether it was Xavier Worthy, which OU knows very well, a couple weeks ago, or as Quentin Johnston last week. Obviously Marvin Mims is a great player. Just your thoughts on the receiving core, Mims, and then what guys like Hasselwood and others, obviously Mario Williams as well, how they've kind of developed throughout this season.
My guess is Marvin Mims is the guy that they want to be able to hit. I think he's leading the Big 12 right now at like 23 yards a catch. He doesn't have a ton of volume catches, but he led the team last year in catches as a true freshman. So this whole Caleb Williams experiment thing at quarterback has worked out pretty well for Marvin Mims because he's come to life. I think Baylor ranks in the 80s in pass defense, if I'm not mistaken, nationally. So that's something that I think Oklahoma really feels like they can exploit. If Caleb Williams doesn't get fooled, Dave Aranda, we all know, is a gifted defensive mind. I think Dennis Simmons, the associate head coach that stood in for Lincoln yesterday, said he's one of the most brilliant minds in all of football right now, not just college football, but all of football. One of the most brilliant defensive minds. So that's something that I would think if you have a true freshman quarterback, you can't get fooled. You can't believe your eyes when you start thinking, okay, that safety's on this side of the field. That corner's rolling up. I've got zone over here. I've got man over there. Don't trust what you think you see if you're Caleb Williams, because guys like Dave Aranda and Jim Knowles at Oklahoma State and John Heacock at Iowa State, those guys are just waiting for a true freshman quarterback so they can get out there and trick them.
Well, they forgot to do that against Chandler Morris.
461 yards.
Yeah, they kept waiting for that freshman moment, but it just never quite worked out. I mentioned,
I was going to ask you a quick question. How much of Chandler Morris's performance last week was him kind of sneaking up on Baylor's defense? Because being a new coaching staff, maybe Dave Aranda and those guys didn't necessarily know what his MO was as a player. Being able to run around, being accurate with short throws and accurate with deep throws as well. Did he sneak up on Baylor, or did they have enough guys like McGuire, for instance, on the coaching staff who knew all about Chandler Morris?
I was going to bring up Joey. He would know him absolutely because he knows Chad and all that and watched him as well. But
he had come in the game the week prior. He took over for Doug, and I think that they were well aware of what he was capable of. Obviously, hadn't seen that much film of what he put on display against them, but I think they had an idea, and I think John just basically he had so many great throws and was just, they had him dead to rights on multiple occasions, and he just found a way to escape and make a play. So I think with a guy like Caleb Williams, that's a massive concern coming in. But he just made great throws. I'm interested to see if he can follow it up. Because he was that good.
Yeah, John, what I thought of, when watching the game. I know you were at this game because you covered Oklahoma, but I was covering the Cotton Bowl when Oklahoma lost to Johnny Manziel and the Aggies, and just in the fact that there were times where Oklahoma's defense had Johnny dead to rights, and then after the game, I think everybody was in that room waiting for Bob Stoops to kind of, just like pop his lid about his defense. And when somebody asked him about what do you do? And he's like, look, you got the guy dead to rights. Throws the ball up to Mike Evans, who's like 11 feet tall, and he catches the touchdown. What are you going to do? And I think that was part of it, was that if Jalen Petrie has him around the waist, you've got him dead to rights, and then he fires a bullet after he slips out of his hands to Quentin Johnston. What are you going to do? Because you technically defended that play the right way. That guy just made a play.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And Caleb Williams, guys, I'm sure you've seen the highlights. He's got the ability to do some of that stuff. He breaks a lot of tackles. We've said around here, and it's such maybe a lazy comparison, but it's kind of the only one we have. He's got Baker Mayfield's head and heart. He's got Kyler Murray's passing arm, and he's got Jalen Hurts' legs. And that's a damn dangerous combination when you're saying this guy takes the best of those three previous quarterbacks at Oklahoma. He's something else. I sent a guy to our deputy editor at allsooners.com. I sent our deputy editor to the Elite 11 finals in Nashville last summer, 2020. So it was a pandemic situation. You had to watch from the stands. You can't do interviews within 6 feet or whatever. It was a very weird and uncomfortable for everybody. But my deputy editor came back and he goes, John, there were NFL quarterbacks at this Elite 11. And he said there were college guys who are starters in college who are going to the NFL. Camp advisors, counselors, administrators, whatever. He said Caleb Williams was the best quarterback at this thing. And I said, hold on, Smokey Joe. I said, you can't possibly believe that. And he goes, John, I'm telling you, this guy is something else. And he right now he's doing radio in Norman, and he gets on every day and he goes, guys, I saw him in 2020 when no one else was around. And
Wow.
tells that story. And it's like, that's a pretty damn good talent evaluation by my guy Parker, who now works for 24/7 Sports. But at the same time, like, I don't think he was wrong after seeing him on the college level, after seeing him now for 5 games. I don't think he was wrong at all. He might be the best player in the country. It's absurd to say that for a true freshman, but this kid's on another level.
Yeah, he seems to be. He has the swagger. We were covering a game, probably Baylor, West Virginia. I don't know who it was when Texas and Oklahoma played, and I saw the score early. And then all of a sudden I heard about Williams went 60-something yards, and I'm like, okay, that's pretty cute. And then, of course, just started seeing him air bomb and what they did, of course, with Kennedy Brooks. It's just insane. And you never know. It's that moment for him might be what we saw Chandler Morris do, who knows, against Baylor last week in Fort Worth. John, is Oklahoma State just sitting back, being quiet, and just saying, okay, we still have everything we need in front of us, plus we have the win against Baylor, and Oklahoma's still on our schedule?
From a 30,000-foot perspective, they probably are. I don't think they're ranked number 10 now in the playoff rankings. But lost to Iowa State's a little bit of a bitter pill. They feel like they should have won that game. But Mike Gundy, guys, has got his best defense in Stillwater as a head coach. And there's talk. There's been talk. I don't know how much of a Big 8 historians you guys are, but there's been talk this week about, Mike, is this defense better than the 1983 and 84 defenses that featured Leslie O'Neal and had some college football Hall of Famers on it and led the nation, or second and third in the nation in scoring defense? He said this defense is the best that he's seen since those mid-'80s teams, which is saying a lot because those Big 8 days, those were heady days for college football, and really showcased what good defense could be. Oklahoma State was right in the mix back then. And I think there was a time when Nebraska was ranked number 2, Oklahoma was ranked number 2, Nebraska was ranked number 1, and Oklahoma State was ranked number 3 in the country. And this was the mid-'80s, and they all played within a 3-week span, and it all shook out. But boy, if Oklahoma State wasn't fantastic on defense back then. And Mike Gundy says this defense is the coordinator, Jim Knowles, has got those guys on that level. So competitively, I can't wait. Oklahoma State's defense right now, to me, in the Big 12, is like Oklahoma's offense. When they're on, I want to watch them. When they're on TV, I want to sit down and watch how they play defense. It's that much fun.
I covered Mark Moore, who was on that 83 and 84 team out of Nacogdoches, a hell of a defensive back. He was fantastic, and I knew that defense was pretty salty, no question. John, thank you, man. Appreciate your knowledge and insight with Oklahoma. Have a great week.
All right. See you guys.
John Hoover.
Appreciate it.
John Hoover, again, SI.com, covers Oklahoma and has written for newspapers and been on talk shows and still is. His own podcast as well in the Oklahoma market.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really curious about this game. I think as we draw closer, there's a little more of a buzz. I mean, certainly on the Baylor side of things, that TCU loss took a bunch of,
steam out of them.
Bunch of steam out of the fans and everything. But, I mean, look, you got a prime opportunity against Oklahoma coming up. You win this game this weekend, and all of a sudden, it's a 180 from how you were feeling following TCU. Although you wouldn't be, right in the mix and wouldn't be fully in control, you'd still be, perched for potentially sneaking into that title game. Whereas if you had won last week, I mean, you'd be ripe for a spot there against Oklahoma. But, they got to win. Oklahoma's got to win, obviously, to keep their hopes alive. And, after watching what we watched last week, I'm really curious to see this Aranda Riley matchup because the Baylor defense knows they have to play a ton better than they played last week, and they know they've got to find a way to get some pressure from somebody that's not in their back seven because that's where all their pressure comes from. That's been a really difficult challenge for them, but they're going to have to find a way to be able to do it against Caleb Williams. And the secondary issues when you're lining up against guys like Mims and Hasselwood and Williams and others, it's going to be a huge test. I can't wait to see how this defense responds and tries to stop it.
Maybe they can get the emotional off the mat like TCU did last week. BU Bear, by the way, in the chat room, that Oklahoma State 83 team ended up beating Baylor in the Bluebonnet Bowl. I used to love the name of that bowl, the Bluebonnet Bowl in Houston. Thank you, BU Bear, for the chat room comment as well. Coming up next, we have plenty to get to. Ricky Thompson, former Baylor wide receiver, does sideline reports. His thoughts as he watched that on Saturday. Plus, you continue back and forth about the college football standings in the chat room and even more nuggets as well. Paul Catalina to my left, Craig Smoak to my right. I'm David Smoak. Armstrong Sims, Jack McKenzie run the mothership. And this is Sikkim 365 Radio.